where inspiration strikes.
Right, welcome back to the second part of the show. Definitely, it's time for us now to have a sit down and have a discussion concerning how COVID-19 has affected and impacted on the real estate sector. Remember, it's quite a sector that is quite known in the country. So much money has been pumped into the real estate sector. We have investors, we have users who depend largely on the real estate sector. And today we want to take time and also have a discussion on how COVID-19 has impacted on the real estate and the possible analysis and assessment that we are supposed to look forward to when we are talking about trying to bring out good out of the whole thing concerning the real estate sector. And largely, if you're a real estate investor out there, what are some of the few details that you're supposed to put into consideration to keep up your real estate sector being running and, of course, profiting you from that? My guest is one that never disappoints when it comes to matters to do with real estate. He has done much concerning this field, as is none other than Mr. Emmanuel Maweu. If you can see him right there on your screen, is Mr. Maweu. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
Right.
Yes.
You're good?
Yes, I'm very good, and it's a pleasure.
Right.
Yeah.
For the benefit of my viewer, once again, who is Mr. Emmanuel Maweu?
Emmanuel Maweu is first is a young man. He's also a businessman. He's an arbitrator.
Young man, what do you mean?
Not yet married, and
Right.
also the person that is considered a youth in this country.
Right.
Yeah.
First and foremost, Mr. Emmanuel, what made you to try and do real estate? You know, being a young youth like you.
Okay. I got inspired. One day I was standing in the top of Bima Tower. Then I was looking just down and I saw people walking everywhere. So
Right.
I thought by the end of the day, all these guys have to go and hibernate somewhere. So it's a marketable industry. No, currently there is oversupply of now the houses. There's too many houses and people don't have the capacity to fill the houses.
Right.
Because they are currently affected with, maybe some have been retrenched, some have lost their jobs, others have their income has reduced. So such scenarios have made where even the landlords have decided to talk to the tenants on how they can proceed forward together. Yeah.
Right. Of course, now speaking about COVID-19, Bwana Emmanuel, to some extent, do you feel like we have how has COVID-19 pandemic affected the real estate sector here?
Actually, one thing we should know is that nobody had a script of COVID-19.
True.
So it was new to everyone. People have found new ways of dealing with it. But generally, we are following now the government rules. We are following also the instructions that have been given of wearing your mask, social distancing. Also, it helps us curb the numbers and reduce it.
Right.
Yeah.
Before COVID-19, how well was the market in the real estate sector was?
Okay, in Mombasa, it's been a while because first it started with the port.
Right.
The port was it was shifted to Naivasha, the inland port. So the current market has been reducing over a while now. But right now, there's hope because new infrastructure is being put. So I'll really encourage people because right now, you will find properties going at a cheaper price.
Right.
In the near future, after now the infrastructure is in place, everything will change and the prices might shoot back up. So I can definitely tell anyone that in the midst of a crisis, it's the best time to acquire a property.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Right. You'll be telling me why is that so? And what are some of the few steps that somebody who requires to get a property on the real estate is supposed to go about that? But of course, coming back to the COVID-19 pandemic, it's quite known that it has hit most of the sectors in the country, talk about how it has hit the health sector, the business sector, and now we are discussing on how it has affected real estate sector now. But Emmanuel,
Yes.
from your own experience and the few people you've interacted with, talk about the real estate investors themselves, what goes through their mind during this time?
Actually, everybody has been hit, and some are trying to make sure that they still retain the income of the property and also progress, because properties are, at times even a landlord has bought the property on mortgage.
Right.
So they try to even talk to the bank on how they'll be extended their payments, and also they try to also keep the tenant at close so that they cannot flee from their houses. Yes, so that is by now reducing. Most of the houses right now have reduced almost 25 to 30% of their previous monthly income.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. On your side, on your company that you're talking about, is called Maswabe
Yes.
Investments, I think.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you had to adjust to something concerning how best you can get to your customers during this time of the pandemic?
Yes, actually, there was a time that there was total lockdown. And as we all know, Mombasa people don't really buy property in Mombasa.
Right.
They buy property, the people who buy property in Mombasa are people from Nairobi, Kisii, Meru. So the moment there was a complete shutdown, it was really a hard time, because maybe they had progressed with a sale, and now it was put at full stop.
Right.
Yeah.
What you've mentioned about maybe in the Mombasa and coastal area, people do not buy property, and it's likely considered that the people from the other sides and different counties are the one who buy the properties. Why is it so?
Okay.
From your own research and looking into that matter, how do you feel? What is the reason exactly?
Really, they are lagging behind, and they don't really know the knowledge about real estate, because people in Nairobi, at one point, they were buying real estate back in the years, and right now they have seen how it can help them in their returns on investment.
Right.
So if it will be largely distributed, this information to the coastarians, we can at least change that notion. Yeah.
Right. And speaking about the returns in the real estate sector here, Mr. Emmanuel, is it an investment that we need all to invest in? Does it have the returns you're talking about? You know, it sounds like there's a lot of money.
First, if you're willing to buy any real estate property, make sure that amount, you won't want to recover it after a year or two.
Right.
Yes.
What do you mean?
Mostly, real estate is a long-term investment. Yes, when you buy a property, as much as it will increase in value, it also takes time in selling it.
Right.
So it's not something to rush in when you want quick money. No, you will have to follow the due process and the processes that are put so that you can achieve the investment capital that you want. Yeah.
Right. So it's something that it's not just you buy it today and after a year you get some bit of returns.
Even selling a house might take you 6 months to 1 year.
Right.
So if you anticipate to buy a house today and then you start selling it and it brings the money after a year, you see, if you really wanted the money as emergency, it will be so hard to invest in real estate, maybe in shares and other things. Yeah.
Right. Now, we need to analyze how COVID-19 has affected the real estate sector. Maybe there are steps at which you've seen and you've, from your own research and from your own experience in terms of during the time at which COVID was not there, and now we have COVID, and how the businesses have changed there. How do you feel that the COVID-19 has affected the real estate exactly?
It has affected the real estate in terms of now returns. The returns have started being slow. Right now, a while back there was a notion that you can work from home.
Right.
So people evaded the offices, the commercial spaces in town were left vacant.
Right.
So they were trying also to save their own by probably going to work at home. So in terms of now the real estate or the property manager, you will have a problem because the tenant will leave the house vacant,
Right.
and it may take almost 2 months or 3 months to now get another tenant. Yeah.
Right. So largely, it all depends on the investor and the tenant that we're talking about here. In the side of the investor, it's about returns have been affected. Now, in the side of the user and the tenant, do you feel like COVID-19 also has impacted largely to the user who uses the real estate sector here?
Yes, very true.
Right.
Of which I manage some properties, and you can even experience it by how people pay. Maybe they were paying on time, but right now they are delaying, or they are paying half and half. So it has kind of also affected them on how they pay the money to the landlord. So probably their income streams have been reduced, or either they even shift. Maybe somebody was living in a bigger house, and now after COVID, they decided, why don't I look for a smaller space? Because the bigger house is quite expensive than the smaller space. That probably, if it's a big family that was in a 3-bedroom, they now shift to a 2-bedroom,
right,
so that they can cut on costs and also improve their living standards. Yeah.
Right. Supposing now we are already into the real estate sector here, and COVID-19 has got us by surprise, and we need to adjust now. Where do we start from?
Adjusting is very, and the one thing you should also understand as an outsider out there, that change is inevitable.
True.
And when it comes, you have to blend in to the change. So right now we have understood that the commercial space is quite, if any pandemic comes,
right,
it will be quite distracted. So for any investor out there, they should now trying to figure out that residential is quite, even especially now the small units, is quite good for business. Yeah, that's a step in the right direction. Yeah,
very true. Right. And speaking about the real estate and how it has been impacted with COVID-19, most people, we've seen other sectors being closed down. We've seen those who were running private schools had to close down. We've seen other private entities also closing down. Was that the same case in this kind of sector?
Actually, yes. Because even a particular property right now that I was given, it was a school. They ended up closing it, and right now they have put it up for sale so that it can go. Now the owner is not interested anymore with a school,
right,
but rather the money that he will get so that he can do any other business,
right,
yeah, that will be profitable. Yeah.
Do you think how different would it have been if at all you guys were prepared in this sector, you had prepared and not being caught by surprise as cities right now?
It's a way of blending with the change, because if you now understand quicker, like now that particular property,
right
now it's been subdivided into shops, so that's also a way to mitigate the challenge. Yeah.
Right. So it's a matter of how you change your tact and how you can also adapt to the few changes as far as the COVID-19 pandemic and how it has impacted on the real estate sector. Remember, we are talking about real estate sector and how largely it has been affected with the COVID-19. And I do believe from wherever part you're watching us, you get to understand what exactly we are talking here as far as the topic is concerned. Remember, if you are also someone who has been largely affected by COVID-19 in terms of real estate, whether if you're a user, whether if you're an investor, you can share your experience, get to tell us how exactly you jogged and moved on with the pandemic, in as much as you still need to run your real estate. And what are some of the tips that you use so that we can help a person and the person can help a person in getting sure that in as much as we have COVID-19, but things get to run as normal, and the businesses that we are running in the real estate sector here also are something that benefit all of us. Share your thoughts. I'll be looking at your comments in just a bit, but coming back to my guest, Mr. Emmanuel, mostly people are afraid of such scenarios of maybe coming up with this kind of pandemics, surprises, what have you, in terms of investments. What is a little secret that somebody who is an investor in such a case, for example, for instance, the real estate, what can you tell an investor who seeks to invest without putting into consideration that there may be a time that we can get some bit of a situation like the COVID one we have?
Actually, you have to engage professionals. In the real estate industry, there is a segment of professionals where you are given professional services. Either it's advice, either it's knowledge, whichever way that in such an instance, a professional will well tell you on how to navigate the problems.
Right.
Yeah. So mostly any investor out there,
Who is this professional you're talking about?
it might be a lawyer, it might be a property agent, it might be a surveyor, it might be a valuer, also a valuer, because if you also want to engage in buying a property, you must engage a valuer so that you might know the real value of what you're getting versus what you're putting on the table.
Right.
Yeah.
Very true. Right. And it makes me think that we have mistakes that most people do when they try and invest into the real estate sector here. Do you feel like there are mistakes that some of these investors do?
Yes, very many. Of which there is a building in Nairobi, Tangela, where it was erected just in the middle of nowhere. That's a dead investment. Somebody thought maybe by improving or putting roads and everything in a desert or in just an excluded place, it will bring money.
Right.
But then it ends up to be something totally different. So it's better to engage somebody, because a building, after you've built it, you can't really destroy it, because
Very
that's
cool.
money that has been put. So if you make any mistake after the building is up, that's very expensive. Yeah, and it's not a good investment position.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, for instance, Bwana Emmanuel, supposing we do want to invest into the real sector, and in the current situation of the COVID-19, how can you advise us to start?
Actually, there are main things you feature or you focus on
Right.
when now buying a property. Shadrach, when you come to me and tell me that you're selling a property, the first thing I have to do is go see that property,
Right.
that particular piece. So that even if you're not there, I can go myself and say, this is the particular piece that Shadrach is selling.
Right.
The second thing is the ownership details. Are you part of the owners? Is the property being owned by a company or an individual? So now after that, you go to due diligence, where you do a search, a title search.
Right.
Where now the title search will provide every information that the land has. Yeah. It's there's other several three, of which the other is now you do a corresponding search. Where now this is where everyone should take note about. A corresponding search shows the history of a land, and if you find the history of that land was once a public land, you should flee away from that property.
Right.
Yeah.
Very true. Quite some bit of thoughts there concerning how you can begin investing into the real estate management. But of course, Bwana Emmanuel, there are things that mostly we've had, like the issues about how to check land, about the housing property that you need to see what you're buying. We have had cases of a bit of conflicts being arise from the real estate sector there, that maybe the kind of a bit of a misunderstanding business-wise. And what are some of the causes that bring about this kind of conflicts and misunderstandings that we witness from the real estate sector here? You find somebody buying a house and it comes, and of course they take each other to court, all of you. What can you say about this?
Actually, if you follow the right process, because it's a lengthy process. Some maybe leave it at the third. After they have done a search, they feel that they are fulfilled with now the information that they got.
Right.
But now going ahead and doing a corresponding search, it will show you history of the piece of land,
Right.
the piece of property, and then also indulge a surveyor, a government surveyor, where he will come, pinpoint the exact details of the land to where it is exactly.
Right.
So if you now follow all those channels, and the last one is also doing due diligence on the person selling to you.
Right.
If you are selling me a property, before I make my signature or I put my signature on that contract, I also have to check your integrity. If it's a company selling, is it still operational? Is it bankrupt? Does it have any cases? Also, in the title search, when you do the search, you'll find if the property has a loan, because if you find a property having a loan, you can't buy it. Because there's another third party who's involved.
Right.
Yeah.
Very true.
Yeah.
And we also have incidents of these people that are called brokers. I don't know if you have heard of them.
Yeah.
Do they even have a role to play here into this sector? You know, there are quite a lot out there.
A broker is somebody who has information that you don't have. Yeah. So he will use that information to get money. Everybody actually is a broker.
Right.
In their own way. For instance, right now, we are giving out information. We are, it's an intermediary of one end and another. Yeah. So if it's even a matatu, you don't have a matatu, but you'll enter there, you'll give him a certain amount, he will take you to town. So it's just a way of trying to find a living, but also you should find credibility of the brokers. Yeah. You just don't accept anything being brought on your table without your consent.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if there is any integrity and a broker with integrity out there. You know, they are quite known. The few that I know, most people say that they do not trust them as much as you were talking there. But of course, how then can we improve the services of these brokers into the real estate sector here if we want to have them on board, you see, and we still need their services? You know, this is quite something that talks about investments in money, and issues about money, you understand, that may bring some bit of misunderstanding. How then can we incorporate these brokers in a style that can bring sanity into the real estate sector?
Even if you have a broker in any particular sector, you also have to follow the process as an individual.
Right.
Don't really trust that individual as whole. The moment they give you a document, prove, go to the necessary governmental institutions, do your search, confirm for your own self. Not really, don't use the broker to confirm for you. He can bring you any document.
Right.
Yeah, you should also by your own self. Now, this is where a lawyer comes in. Everybody who wants to buy a property has to have a lawyer. So that at least you may reduce these instances of where you are being conned by people who aren't really selling the property. Yeah.
Right. Do you feel some of the thing that you're talking about here, that we have incidents of people being conned when they want to buy properties, are some of the things that are derailing the efforts and the impact of real estate in the society, in the economy of Kenya? Do you feel also such incidents are the ones which are pulling us behind?
Actually, yes, at times, because some investors make decisions that are bold. And at times, when you are now trying to follow this due process in now getting the whole history of a particular piece of property,
right,
you'll get that the government institutions are a bit slow. Because you can go do a search and expect it in 2-3 days, but later you find that you have to pay somebody so that you can get now the document. It's a bit slow if you now follow the real and right procedure. But now, if you now give out your amount, the process search will be as fast as possible.
Right.
Yeah.
Very true. And do you feel also, Emmanuel, that during this COVID-19 pandemic, we've had the government trying to maybe put some money to other sectors, talk about the tourism sector there. Quite a lot of money has been pumped into to try and revive the tourism sector. Do you feel also the government has done much when it comes to supporting the real estate properties and sector here?
Yes, the government supports real estate in the terms of infrastructure. These roads we've seen, they are opening up each and every place. Even like here in Changamu, you can see cab roads are almost getting in every house
right,
that is there. So it shows you that the government is also thinking about the local mwananchi over there, and also just an instance, the Dongo Kundu bypass.
Right.
It's really going to open up the south, and also it's going to make the prices of the lands over there to appreciate in value. Yeah.
So do you feel like going forward there may be an increase when we talk about investments in the real estate sector?
It's slow, but we are heading somewhere. Yeah, it's slow, but we are heading somewhere.
Right.
Yeah.
Why is it slow? Can't we even do something to make it at least?
Actually, those are forces that we can't really control, because it's the government. And the government, in its own way, has better ways of serving the mwananchi. So if there is a loop on that, and they really capitalize on it, they can help even the real estate industry. Because picture this, the real estate industry in Kenya
Right.
6 to 7% GDP. So having that in picture, we can raise this to even 10 or 20. But now putting in place the right infrastructure so that it may help the mwananchi open up the country. Yeah.
Right. And according to my research here, when I was looking at this topic, there is a point that I needed clarification from you. And they're saying that it should be emphasized that it is not yet enough work done when we estimate how long the impact of COVID-19 on the real estate sector will continue. But the question here now is, do you feel like there is need to have a lot to be done in trying to make the real estates run smoothly in as much as we have COVID-19? And what are some of the things that you think we can do and the investors can do together with the users also can do in making sure that at least we have the running of operations in the industry, regardless of whether if we have COVID-19 or not?
One thing you should understand is that if you follow the guidelines provided by even the World Health Organization,
Right.
and put in place the measures like sanitizing, let's say, for instance, in a hotel, you put sanitizing, you put the social distancing of
Right.
tables, you will create, or you will bring back the business. So it will, in turn, it will save the landlord. At least you will be getting some revenue, even if it's not all the revenue that they were getting before COVID. Yeah.
Right. Of course, and before even we take a short break here, Emmanuel, there are people who feel like it's not wise to invest into real estate during this time of COVID-19. Talk about the issues about how hard it is to get somebody to buy a property, how monies have been affected, jobs have been affected. Do you feel like that mentality is slowly eroding, and then we may come to have different kind of mentality of trying to invest into the property sector?
In Mombasa, we have an issue of now the real residents of Mombasa buying property. So you'll find that people from the other parts of the country are the ones buying property in Mombasa. They don't see the real value yet, but the value is still appreciating each and every day.
Right.
At no one point, a property will depreciate in terms of, now, if you put up a building in a maybe 50 by 100 plot,
Right.
the value of the land will still remain the same, will still keep appreciating. But the value of the building might reduce because maybe you haven't maintained it, or you have just left it to just spoil, or you are not trying to renovate it or make it look better. Yeah.
Right. So there is need also to check the value of the building and the structure in as much as we are moving along with the COVID-19 pandemic.
Yeah.
And now in terms of the user now, do you feel also he has to do something to make sure they do support the real estate investments? And also you had something about that this is the right time if you have to buy a property, you need to buy it now. Why is it so?
Actually, you should learn that many Kenyans put their money in real estate, where if they want now to get that money, they
Right.
either access a loan or they'll sell the property to get that money. So, like this particular time, we have had so many distressed sellers. Somebody, even a property is up for, the real valuation is around 10 million, but the owner is selling it almost at 5
Right.
or 6 because maybe they are distressed because they need money. Yeah.
Right. So do you feel like also those who think that this is the worst time when it comes to investing and what have you, they should try and change up their mind concerning
Actually, it's
that
the
as well?
best.
Very good.
I can say, okay, that's my opinion. Maybe somebody else has a different opinion. But on my side, because if you find a property that is being sold at a lower value than its real valuation, just because the owner is distressed, that's a property to go for. Because the moment you purchase it, doesn't mean it will still remain that value you have purchased it for. It will go back to its real value that the valuation has been done. Yeah.
Right. Definitely. I do believe from whatever part you're watching us from, you're still understanding on how best you can try to keep yourself in the real estate sector and industry to keep it running, whether if you're an investor or whether if you're the user or buyer out there. And quite a thought from my guest, Mr. Emmanuel, says that this is the right time for you to buy a property. Don't wait for the COVID-19 era to just go and say you come back and rather buy it later on. But of course, this is the right time. And remember, we want to take a short break. When we come back, we'll be coming back to discuss more on this other topic. We will have a discussion concerning how then should we go about it and some of the few processes that we are supposed to do in a bit to try and adjust, and what are some of the few factors that we are supposed to put into consideration when we are analyzing and trying to put this matter into perspective. Time for us to take a short break. Remember, I'd like to hear from you as well. Communicate your views, sentiments via the number below your screen. Of course, you can also move to our social media platform. It's Boss TV Facebook. We'll be coming back with much more. Don't go too far. Right, welcome back to the second and the last part of the show. Definitely, we are still having a discussion concerning the impact of COVID-19 on the real estate industry. Quite a lot we have had to discuss here concerning how best can the investors and the users of the real estate industry can juggle around the whole process of getting to run up their business in the real estate sector in as much as we have COVID-19. And of course, my guest is someone who has done matters to do with real estate management. Is none other than Mr. Emmanuel Maweu. Coming back to you, but Emmanuel,
Yes.
we have different categories and characteristics of real estate, some of which need some clear thoughts and how best you can try and manage them. Maybe you can take us through a few as we proceed with the discussion.
First, I'd love to tackle on the liquidity part.
Right.
Any property you see, you can change it into money
Right.
anytime. But it needs patience. Yeah, you don't have to make rash decisions thinking that you'll buy a property today and sell it tomorrow and get as much cash as possible. You also have to be patient with the now selling and indulging in the property sector. So another thing is durability. When putting up a building, maybe the architecture will say this building will stay for 80 years or 100 years. Even here in Mombasa, you have seen some other buildings that were put up in 1920s, others 1918s. So it shows you how it's durable. Another thing, it's indestructible.
Right.
You can destroy a building, but you can't destroy the land. Probably maybe you use it by mining or make holes in it, but by later, naturally, it will just fill itself and come back to the normal state.
Right.
Yeah.
So you want to tell me that if I want to turn my property into a liquid now, process number one, what I'm supposed to do, it's not a matter, I mean, I might be having a building or a property out there and I need to turn it into a liquid. And of course, through the expertise that you're talking about, finding the right people, you see, if you're to advise somebody in a nutshell on how to turn your property into a liquid, what do you start from?
It's hard to start when you are clean on selling properties, but first you may start with now telling your family, telling also your friends, but at times people don't love sharing that notion that I'm selling my thing. So you can as well look for now a property professional who deals in the selling and buying of properties.
Right.
so that we may at least expound on. It might even give you a word of advice that selling it at this particular time is not wise. Probably wait till this particular time so that you may get more money on your investment. Yeah.
Right. And every investor who is investing into the real estate management here, real estate industry, must have whatever you're talking about here about the issue about professionals. And to be a professional who likely maybe to some extent is mostly involved here, we're talking about the real estate managers here who do the bit of management. And according to a statement here, I say that a good real estate manager will be defined by what they do along the 3 dimensions in managing in management, that is include managing a crisis, responding and recovering, and thriving. Those 4 things are very key here in terms of managing a real estate. How do we go about each of these if you are to be a real estate manager?
Let's start and break it down. Start with the first one.
The first one is crisis here, managing a crisis now.
In terms of crisis, you understand that you wouldn't get all the investment that you need. Probably maybe there is a violence in this particular area. People might evade your building. But now you can add incentives like either reducing of rent, also coming with creative ways of either now changing a commercial space into a residential.
Right.
Yes, you can just follow the right channels and be creative in finding ways of bringing, even if it won't be the wholesome amount that you were getting before the crisis, but you can at least get something from it.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's how the best way you can manage a crisis.
Yeah.
And after which, then how do we do about with responding now?
Responding is now making those incentives to your tenants, making sure that first, there's also some landlords earlier when the COVID-19 had started.
Right.
They even gave out 3 months for free.
Waiver.
Yeah, for free. So that is a way of even cushioning your client so that they can at least have the amount to pay you. Because if your client is suffering, at some point they leave. And to get another tenant, it will take you almost 2-3 months. So for you not to lose that, you can as well talk to your client and also make those incentives so that you can work better going forward.
Right.
Yeah.
And after which we are done with responding. Now there's the aspect of how we go about the issue about recovery. Now we need to get back to a position that we were.
Recovery is now maybe renovating, because at times if a property was down low, a person will come by it, renovate it, so that at least it may appeal to the eyes of the new, and also add the rent. That can now be a way of recovering from the crisis. Yeah.
Last but not least, here he talks about thriving. How best can you, as a manager, assist in the business to thrive?
Now, after you make sure that that particular property is well suited for your customer. By now, in terms of this crisis,
right,
others have done using the sensitization of the rules, where you get a poster on a hotel saying that no service without a face mask. So it's also trying to cushion the other people so that they might at least feel safe with your property. They'll give it value. Yeah.
Right. Very true. Some bit of thoughts there if you are so much interested to become one of the few real estate managers out there, how to be a good business, or rather real estate manager. Those are the key points that my guest is talking about. And remember, he himself is doing and managing a couple of properties out there in the real estate industry. But of course, now most people also have this thought, like, do I have to go somewhere to get some bit of skills concerning real estate management?
Actually, there is the internet. The internet it's well accessible with everyone, everywhere. You can at least take your time and also read about a place. Maybe you want to buy a property in probably Mombasa.
Right.
You look at the infrastructure. You look at what also the government is planning for the near future of that particular place, so that at least you might have vast knowledge before making any decision. Yeah.
Right. And speaking about being a real estate and being a part and parcel of a stakeholder inside the real estate industry, how well do you feel you need to be conducted? You know, sounds like it's quite a field that you need connection and networking.
People in real estate take pride in network.
Right.
Because if I don't have that particular piece you are asking from me, I'll look it from my friend. And the wider network you have, the wider or the easier you can get a particular property in town. Yeah.
So there is need for you to network a lot.
A lot.
Right.
You have to know even down to the mzee wa mtaa. Yes. Because at times information is put there. So if you can't really go and network with those guys, you'll miss it all.
Nearly the buying habits of super rich also have been shifted. And of course, according to that, a survey shows that the wealthy Kenyans are now seeking second homes away from traditional poach estates such as Kileleshwa, Runda, Kitusuri, Nairobi, as well as Nyali and Kizingo in Mombasa, in search for more privacy, outdoor space, and areas they can acquire at low prices. And this, of course, also is in relation to how they buy properties in the real estate sector. Now, last but not least, Emmanuel, as we wrap up the show here, one advice, if you were to speak to the investors and managers who are dealing with this all aspect of a real estate sector, what can you advise, in as much as we know that we still have COVID-19 with us and we have no clue at what point will it exactly go away?
I'll focus on three things. First, when trying or finding a property, take your time. Don't rush into buying a property just because it sounds a better deal or a good deal. Take your time. Number two, involve professionals like lawyers. Number three, due diligence.
Right.
Make sure you have done your homework before you buy it. You buy any property. This will in turn save you the tiresome loggerheads after maybe you have bought a property that is not well suited for the people.
Right.
For you, that is.
Right. Quite some bit of thought. Very key. 3 points that he has mentioned there. Due diligence is one that you need to put into consideration, largely if you have to invest when it comes to the real estate sector. No, not we want to bring the morning discussion into a wrap in the larger Good Morning Boss program. Thank you so much for your time. See you tomorrow, same time, same place, on the same channel, Boss TV. Goodbye. Have yourself a nice day.